Welcome to Mick and the Psychic, where we leave no stone unturned as we explore all things outside the apparent physical realm.
There is no intent to teach or make you believe or disbelieve anything. It is just a safe space to listen and explore with us.
So for this next episode, you have permission to open your heart and mind as you join myself and Xzavia on this deep dive into the unknown.
What happens is those things that come easy to us, often we overlook.
Yep.
Where human design says, path of least resistance, Wu Wei. And that's what we're actually designed to be here and share with the world.
We're back in it again with another special guest on the show. It feels like it's been forever, so it's great to be back. And today we've got Cassandra DeAnn with us. For listeners who don't know who Cassandra is, she's a certified human design reader. Of course, you all know what that means. And a Gene Keys guide. Awesome. She's also a podcaster and a writer. She assists others in their deconditioning process from their societal programming. I think a lot know about that. And if they don't, as part of the conditioning anyway. Her heartfelt aspiration is to inspire and uplift individuals by sharing her story, empowering individuals to embrace their authentic expression. Sounds like a lovely thing for people to do. So through the filters of what's left of your own societal programming, here's Cassandra. And Cassandra, welcome to the show. It's good to have you. Yay.
Oh my gosh, thank you guys so much for having me. You guys just have the most incredible energy. I love it. I'm so excited to be here.
It's MDMA, mainly MDMA. But
I know what that is now. I'm learning things.
That's synthetic love. No, we do operate on real love, so it's doesn't have the side effects of MDMA. So
maybe.
Yeah, this is going to be fun because we're talking about societal conditioning. I think there's lots of different types of conditioning, obviously, but looking at breaking through that with what you do. Before we get to what you do, though, because we'll get stuck on what you do and then we won't even know who you are. Is it okay? Is it okay to get like a bit of a background?
My question, but
go.
What I was going to ask anyway.
And now to optimistic Xavia's question.
That's what we wanted to know. It's all good. We just love to know, so how did you get into all this? What fascinated you about this? When did it start? And the question that sort of goes hand in hand with that, because I'm like the psychic on the show. Is this something that you have a psychic, are you psychic as well? Or are these all things that you learn and you use your intuition, and as well as the rules and how you're supposed to break down the reports and all that? How do you know all this? I just want to know what parts are psychic or not, or intuitive, and what part are learned. There's so many questions, but
just one.
Awesome.
Start with one.
What's about you?
Give her one.
Sorry, I know.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love
think
it.
You can answer it all together.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, okay, awesome. So yeah, my journey is a little interesting. I grew up in a religiously abusive home. I joke that I was not the likely candidate for the spiritual awakening that I had, as I never considered any of this stuff. And then one night with a solar eclipse that was in a key placement in my astrology chart, I just sort of snapped into this whole different person. And I look at it as that this was ancient wisdom and understanding that sort of just came to the surface. It was quite the adjustment for those who had long-term relationships with me, as they had to really get to know me all over again. And it's been a very accelerated process since then. Because my awakening was during a solar eclipse, I was very drawn to astrology, which ultimately led me to human design, because human design uses a lot of astrology. As far as other little details about myself, I'm trying to think to throw in there. So I live out in the country in Florida. It's really hot here. I have a teenager who is neurodivergent. And let me think, I love cats. I'm a crazy cat lady. I've got
Yeah.
3 cats, and
Were you a
that could
cat
be a
lady
whole.
before that moment
I
of
was. I
realization?
was.
Okay, okay.
Didn't lose
All
that.
Yeah,
right.
I was.
So they
Yeah,
already
I
worked
was.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, I could definitely have a whole podcast just talking about my cats. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. And yeah, so just followed, dove right in to this whole journey of human design, which then led me to become a Gene Keys guide, which is sort of connected in ways, I guess, to human design, because human design uses also a lot of the ancient I Ching. And Gene Keys is very much about the I Ching as well. So yeah,
So this is
I serve.
Chinese, predominantly both of
Yes,
them are ancient Chinese based.
yes.
Aha.
Yes. So human design is a lot of astrology, the ancient I Ching, the Chinese I Ching, the Kabbalah tree of life, and the
Oh,
Hindu
okay.
chakra system. And then
Okay.
it mixes in quantum mechanics and
How dare you?
biochemistry and all sorts of things. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a whole mix. So that being said, leading into your other question is that there is a lot to understand. There are so many layers. So while it is involving the intellect, it is very esoteric in nature and has a very transformative quality to it that invites us to really sit with self-reflection and ultimately experience significant transformation in our lives as we start to align with our authentic energy. I do actually recognize, I do identify as an intuitive. I've not used the word psychic, but you'll have to let me know if there's a specific difference in that. No, not really. Okay.
They're
Yeah, I
just word.
love it though. I've
Everything's
never
just
thought
words
of that.
anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
It's all
just
just
words,
words.
Yeah. I'm
labels.
like, yeah, I need to like, yeah, embrace that. But I do consider myself an intuitive, and there is a lot of information in human design. I mean, someone could come to me 6 times for an hour reading and still not get it all.
Okay.
So I see it as I am very intuitively guided to what is relevant in that moment for them to hear. And I do have a practice of connecting to their higher self and their ancestors, spirit guides, such to guide me in that process of sharing whatever information is relative to that moment.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that, and I'm speaking to lots of people that work intuitively, I guess.
Yeah.
Is that where to work intuitively, is that getting out of the way of the intellectual side of things and then allowing the more esoterical to come through for what's right? Do you find that you have to work in that way to kind of get out of the way of overthinking it and allowing that process to happen on a more subtle level?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I like to, I think of it this way, and I personally believe that, digesting and relating, understanding the system in itself, I feel was divinely guided
Mm,
for me.
mhm.
So I could say that there is a lot of intellect in retaining it, but I look at it as it's a storehouse. And so intuitively, it sort of channels through me. And earlier in my journey, when I was really starting to experience the power of this, I was talking to someone and the words were just flowing through me. And I started to, for a split second, question, okay, did I go through like the right systems to connect to, where is
Mm.
this coming from? And it was interesting because the second I did that, like a faucet, it shut off.
Ha.
And I literally sat there looking at her chart. I knew it, the intellect was there, but it was like the words weren't flowing. It was like a faucet, and it was so awkward because she put her hand on my shoulder and she said, "Sweetie, it's okay, I don't want to drain you." And I couldn't even come up with the words. I just was like holding my finger like, you know, 1 minute. And I grounded myself, and just like that, it came back on and I flowed without missing a beat. That night in meditation, my guides, who tend to be a little snarky, were like, "Yeah, now you know next time you start questioning things."
That's so incredible.
That's a great confirmation as well. I love that you grounded yourself to sort of reconnect again.
Yeah.
Because you could just fake it and go, all right, well, I know enough information to give this person, you know,
Yeah.
what they came for.
Mm.
And then so at least you could finish the session, but instead you were true to yourself to go, nah, where that information was coming from stopped. I've got to go back and get it. That's
Yeah.
as far as the intuitive side and the choice side, that was the choice side, wasn't it? To go,
Yeah.
all right, I'll look like an idiot and wait until it comes back. That's pretty amazing. I'm used to looking like an idiot, so it's fine. But for those that aren't used to it, that's a big decision.
We're all used to you looking like an. Oh, you didn't mean we meant it for ourselves. Like, yeah, okay, right. Sorry. Oh,
I want to go. I know you want to know stuff, X, but I want to go back because we just kind of brushed over a moment. Yeah, go back.
I was going to say, yeah, I want to go to, because you just like brushed over like religion and your upbringing and abuse, and we're like, hang on, go back. Whatever you don't like, if whatever you mind sharing is okay with I'm twisting my words today. Whatever is okay with you to share, we'd love to understand a bit more about your past, because you teach and explain how people understand conditioning, and you would have been very much conditioned, which of course to me, and I'm sure many agree, nothing is coincidence when it comes to that. So we need to go through some things to help other people, and you've probably had it worse than most in many ways. So you could share whatever you would like about that. That'd be lovely, so we can understand you a little bit better.
Absolutely. And yes, I'm pretty much an open book. So within our time, within our time frame.
Yes.
So I was raised in what I guess you'd identify as a fundamentalist Christianity. However, my particular home environment was where my mother took this to even more of an extreme. She actually ultimately stopped attending other churches, called herself an apostle, and started her own religious organization. My brother and my mother's love for the religion was highly focused on demonic possession and deliverance. So it was, my brother and I grew up in a home where it was nothing for them to be holding gatherings where people were crawling on the floor, screaming, acting like snakes, all of these things. One of my earliest, most traumatic experiences was when I became a teenager. My mother attempted to cast out a spirit of lust from me and told me that after what seemed like forever, but was absolutely hours of a process of her screaming at me for this demon to reveal its name, ultimately she said, "Well, God told me that you want your demons, so until you're willing to get rid of them, you're going to continue to be possessed." Now, my end of that experience was, and my brother recalled, I was curled up in a ball, completely shaking, having a very strong trauma response. And I kept thinking to myself, I wanted it to stop. I didn't know how I got possessed, but I didn't want to be possessed. And much of my life was wanting to be everything that they wanted me to be. So this was a shock. And I remember thinking to myself, I wish, maybe if I could just come up with a demon name to repeat to my mother, that she would stop. But I didn't know any demon names, and I was afraid I would get in trouble for lying.
Yeah,
So
teenage hormones. Is that got a name?
Yeah.
Teenage hormones of 16. Yeah. Oh, geez.
So I sat
So what
through
happened?
it.
Oh.
Ultimately, at the age of 18, my grandfather committed suicide, to which my mother said that it was because my Methodist grandfather that was in church every Sunday, every Wednesday, and active in church, that he was not on fire enough for God and was not submitted to the call of God enough. Therefore, the Lord took off his umbrella of protection and allowed the devil to take my grandfather, which is something she preached to everybody at his funeral, and to this day is very proud of that revelation. And so I entered my teenage years feeling like, what I felt like, no, damned if I do, damned if I don't. There was no, trying to do everything they said wasn't enough, and I had no sense of self. Later I've realized that there was a lot of narcissism and other conditioning there, and so I sadly lived much of my life until my spiritual awakening with this shame and this fear. I mean, so much fear. It was hard for me to, when I moved out, live alone and sleep at night, because I would have PTSD and traumatic issues. Before my awakening, I still kind of just had my toe in, I hope I'm good enough, and trying to deal with the fear. But it wasn't until after my awakening I realized how much fear daily I was living with, even so much as my mom told us to never look at ourselves in the mirror in the eyes, because the eyes were the window to the soul. And if we were to look at our reflection, that we would open ourselves up to possession. And there was other ways in which I was actually disciplined through things where I was told to look into the mirror and things would be said negative to me, where I was forced in these awkward positions. So I had no sense of self. I had no intuition. I had no trust. And through my life before my awakening, in my career, everything had this undertone of burnout that came from this striving of approval. I needed someone like my parents did to give me this list of what I was supposed to do, how I was supposed to live my life. And that ultimately ended up being taken advantage of, to where I was very susceptible to anything and everything, and always run ragged. So that's a little bit of that story. So human design was so powerful for me, because it gave me permission to be who I am, and to get in touch and understand who I am, and understand that I'm unique, you're unique, everybody is unique, and there's a place for everybody. There's no one size fits all. There's no damned person. It's just beautiful energy.
You're so brave. Oh my God.
Wow. It's so interesting that, I haven't met too many people, trying to think of how many people I've actually met, that have had like an instant kind of awakening, like a thing that's happened. And I'm sure there's many things that were in there over time, and there was a moment where it all changed. Doesn't mean that's come from nowhere. It's potentially come from lifetimes of work. Who knows? But can you talk us through, this is just voyeurism here. Can you talk us through like what happened with that, like the moments leading up to the awakening, and then like what that, if you can put in words, what that was like? Because it sounds like such an incredible shift between the person that's talking to us now
Yeah.
from the person that was really quite heavily abused beforehand.
Yeah. So, during the year or two leading up to it, I had the work I did was I worked for 10 years in the wedding industry. And I had two dear friends that worked with me. They both had sort of a spiritual mindset of things. And I recall hearing things, but I always blocked it out. I did not feel at liberty to explore that,
No,
due
that was
to
naughty.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I'll say this too is because of that dogmatic perspective of that fundamentalist Christianity, I'll say that there were many times in which I just, they were crazy. It was things that I just kind of was like, okay. So I had heard, like, one of my friends mentioned your natal chart, and I pulled it up once and nothing, like, I got nothing out of it. And so I had gone through this period where it's like when shifts start to happen, I think things start to,
Yeah.
it's like if you
Starts
ignore
clicking.
the signs long enough, eventually the universe is like, I'm throwing you out of the nest.
That's what it
Figure
sounds
it
like what
out.
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I went through a really, what felt like a traumatic experience for me in my career, which is very embarrassingly sad, because literally all it was is one person wasn't satisfied with the work I created out of 10 years of raving
Wow.
reviews, exceeding expectations. One person, and all of a sudden it was like my identity caved in, which is so, it's so unfortunate to say, because I'm like, man, that's so sad. That's something so small and petty. It's not like someone died or, something traumatic happened, my home burnt down. It was just, I had this one little thing that kind of teetered my life.
Yeah.
And I considered going to see a psychic. And on the way there, I thought about astrology, and I had some friends that were talking about podcasts. I'm in my 40s, and I missed the early podcast game, so I was like, oh, podcasts, what is
They're
that
crap. They're
for?
rubbish. And if you're
Why
listening
would
to
I
a
need
podcast
that?
now, look at your life, because really, yeah.
It's like, that's boring. Who does that?
Same. Probably still do.
And so, yeah, but this particular day, it was like things that I never considered before. I started to consider. The crazy part was this, and I almost wish I could be a fly on the wall during this process to really get through and absorb it, because I started listening to this podcast, and it was like I started having all of these revelations while I was listening to it. And it wasn't even that deep of a show. It was very entry level. By the time I got to my meeting with the psychic, I did all the talking and was like, well, because of this, this and this happened, and this is this, and I have my moon here, and this, and I was talking like I'd been knowing these things all along. And based on my upbringing, I am not the know-it-all. I am not the type of person to go in there and be that open. I mean, for much of my life, I just wanted to like be a wallflower, And so it was just started to just unwind. And it wouldn't stop. That day, it was just like revelation after revelation, until finally I stopped and I looked at my husband, and the emotions just like exploded. And I said, my whole life is right here. Why didn't I know these things sooner? Why didn't I have these realizations sooner? And I knew it was because it wasn't the right timing, but this was. The next day, everything was different. I
Wow.
had a friend that came to work with me, and I was talking to her again, once again, like I retained everything.
Yeah.
The amount of information I retained through this whole journey, even considering human design, because it's a complicated system to try to memorize all of the
We'll get to
aspects.
that. It looks
Yeah.
full on. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it just was all of a sudden. My husband was like, "You are different." My friend was like, because she was more spiritual, she was like, "You feel very different. The energy around you is completely different." And she had worked with me for over 3 years. So it just from there, it was just very, very accelerated. Yeah.
Can we just
And
take a
this,
moment to thank the disgruntled client for playing their role in your story?
yes. Yes.
Because it
Yeah.
was meant to knock you off your pedestal, so you'd question everything to get you. Like, I love
Yeah.
how this is all played out.
Otherwise, you'd still be quite a successful wedding planner or wedding
Yeah.
business owner.
You were meant to get knocked down, so you
Yeah.
so you question your life choices, and I love that. It was such a mess.
So there is a place in this world for assholes. Okay.
Yeah.
And I just want to put that out there to everyone that knows me. There's a place out there.
I was just gonna say, so
Okay.
you should feel safe.
I do. I feel better. This is great. Are you still together with your husband? Because
Yeah.
he married a
I
very different woman.
am.
Grow with you.
Okay.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
What a legend.
Yes.
Wow.
So
That's right.
we've been married 20 years.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
And this experience was not that long ago.
Yeah.
It was I awakened June 9th of 2021. And it was great at first because his conservative wife was all of a sudden entertaining aliens and intuition and all of these things
Yeah.
that I'd never like entertained before. I mean, he shared with me a reflection earlier when we were dating. Like, we had a conversation about dinosaurs, and I was like, "They're not real." And he was
Oh,
like,
wow.
"Cassandra, they're real." And I was like, "No, those are just made up. Those are just fake bones." There, because that's what I was taught.
Yeah,
There's
wow.
no dinosaurs.
it's not
God
in the
didn't
Bible.
create dinosaurs. That's all just some ploy of the devil to confuse us. And so he was having a blast with it at first. It was
Sounds like he's still having a
exciting.
blast. He's like, okay, cool. Here's my new
Yeah.
wife, and we'll go on this journey now. What a champion.
Yeah, so at first it was awesome, but then the rate in which I absorbed information
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
so accelerated.
Yeah.
Before long, I was talking, and he was like, "Even your dummied down version, I'm still nowhere
Yeah. He's not
close
going to
to
question
that."
it. He's like, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so then we
Yeah.
had to address themes in our relationship to where, because I came from the home life I did,
Mm.
people carried me essentially. I was not a very functioning adult, and
Okay.
so that was the biggest transition. Is
Wow.
because now I have confidence, and
Yeah.
now I understand myself, and I have a backbone. And he had to confront insecurities on, where do I fit in this picture now?
Wow.
And yeah, there was some pretty knockout drag out conversations
Yeah.
regarding me going this new direction, which doesn't have that socially acceptable title as a wedding florist did.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of conversations, and I held my ground to who I am. And I'm a firm believer in energetics, and that as you resonate with your energy, that your energy around you will either leave or shift. And our relationship has shifted. I have space, feel loved and supported, and we have even closer of a relationship now, where he now has that space to be himself that was always taken up before by my emotional outbursts and needs of emotional security. So it's been great.
What an amazing story for love, because you know how some people would like it, and it's very easy for, particularly, it's always people that aren't qualified in it, but they psychoanalyze relationships and people so perfectly textbook, but they have no idea what they're talking about. And they'll see relationships and they'll go, he's with her because she needs someone to look after. She needs someone to look after him, and that is his manly, and that's the only reason why they're attracted together, and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
This is a story of how there's something way way deeper than that. That
Yeah.
he fell in love with you, you fell in love with him, and things have changed and altered amongst all of that, but that love is still there. That, what a beautiful story about love and transition together, because that's got nothing to do with.
Yeah.
I guess this is your breaking down of the all of the conditioning, right? It's the same thing, right?
Yep.
It's like, yeah, there's something way deeper than that going on.
Exactly. I could count on one hand, probably not even fill the hand, out of 100 people that I know, where in a relationship, and this is including myself, in a relationship where usually the woman has grown and become spiritual in some way and learned something, and then they drifted apart and it didn't work out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
many out of
One
50
grew up, one couldn't
stay,
go with them.
worked out.
Yeah.
So
I think and there's a lot of truth to that. And I think the hard part with that is, you know, being in that moment, like I said, realizing that you can't cave, and you have to I had to be willing to sit with the ideal and understand that by making this decision, there is that possibility, but stay strong within my beliefs and understanding of who I am, and know that the universe's intentions for me would not be to live the status quo, to be what was expected of me. And that's hard for any relationship, you know, like you said, to, you know, hold the course come what may.
Honestly, and
what
to
I
do that honestly. So, because
Yes.
it's something that you can say and go, well, whatever happens, this is meant to be, whatever happens. But deep down, they're not thinking that. They're thinking, whatever happens, so long as he's still with me and that bit doesn't change. Like, you have to be so honest with the bit, part of you dying. Part of you has to die.
And it shows how
That's
strong you
hard.
did become to be able to do that and know that you could stand on your own whichever way it went.
Yeah.
I remember standing there and processing a very similar things. My husband didn't grow with me and didn't like what I was doing. And I tuning in, and I felt like my purpose was way bigger than the marriage and need to help. It was more important than keeping our marriage together. So if he didn't come along for the ride, it's just how it was meant to be. But I hoped he did.
Yeah.
And with 3 children as well. Like, that's quite a brave
kids,
thing.
at the time.
Like,
So,
it's easy to go, well, we'll stay together for the kids. It's easy to
exactly.
outsource that again for another reason why.
So it's really brave to hold on to that, whichever way it turned out. And I don't feel like mine failed because it didn't work out. There was just how and you know, it doesn't matter in that aspect, but I just love that he could grow with you, and he's very commendable to his ego not to be too bruised, even though I would have, in the process of understanding that now you're more equals, and you know, even in your private life, like that kind of, like that would have been a whole flip on its head as well. Like, I can imagine it would have just rippled off everywhere for you guys. You would have had a big change in all areas. So
you would have been a conversation for a lot of friends with other friends going, so do we talk about what happened to Cassandra? Because I don't think I know who I'm. Do you know what I mean? Like, surely behind your back, there's meetings going on in cafes going, we have to talk about Cassandra. What the hell? Did you keep lots of friends? Did some drift away?
Lordy.
Okay.
Yeah. So so as it stands, I did not, with my upbringing, understand how to have relationships. You know, my mom would always say that narcissistic aspect, she would tightly watch and control us. We didn't even communicate with other family. We were that isolated. And she would say, well, the Lord told me that they weren't a good fit for you. And it would just become so exhausting to try to fight with her that ultimately I would end the relationships. And so I didn't have a lot of friends, but I did have a few. I had a lot of people that I thought were friends in the industry that I worked, that we would go out on outings and do things together, and they talked like they were there. I will say in my story that I think I have one connection aside from my husband that stuck around. That includes my two spiritual friends who also and it was because it was so rapid. One friend, I can remember before we cut ties, she said to me, I have to get to know you again every time I meet with you, even though it's like 3-4 weeks apart, because you're growing that fast. And I have understandings that I intuit of why these relationships did not work out. But a couple of them, they refused to have conversations with me, and just out of the blue, completely unexpected. There wasn't even a fight or an argument or a disagreement. Just all of a sudden, I think I need, to walk away. And so that was a very hard part of my spiritual journey. But I feel like when we energetically shift who we are, it's sort of like a renegotiation period for energy. And like we talked about, like with my husband, I feel like the energy has to shift with you, or it goes by. But I hold no resentment, because I believe that every relationship is in our lives for a reason. And sometimes that's a time and season. And I know that for each one, I probably triggered and also contributed positivity, just like they did me, and that it served its purpose and its reasoning. And so I had to learn to accept and love myself and not fall into old habits of insecurity and lack of worth, because I couldn't hold those relationships, because I was taught and manipulated to, if I was a good person, I did everything they said, I didn't upset them, and they would stick around.
It's interesting that was a very quick, very big test for you. So it's not saying it's a test, but it did test immediately afterwards. And I think a lot of the practical behind that is that we hang on to ideas of people. The saying, never meet your heroes. It's because you've got an idea of someone, you unfairly put them on some kind of pedestal, or you have an idea of someone and they're not that at all. And so for them, they've hung on to who you are and what you're becoming. And if it's not lining up to that, it's too much for them. So it's not about you, it's about them not letting go of what they thought you were, or what they thought their relationship with you was. So what a test instantly of, you don't have to make them feel okay with that. Just maybe they're wrong, and that's okay. Wow, that's so incredible.
So many
I guess this is why I
words.
don't know a lot of people that have had that instant realization or awakening, and that's probably because with that comes a shitload of turmoil around you. It's a shitstorm that happens instantly. I think, we had Tony Riley on early a couple of years ago, Xzavia. She's got a book called Awaken. That she had something fairly similar as well. Of just everything, friends, family, husband.
Well, I definitely believe you just get what you're ready for, and you're built tough.
Thank God we're not all ready for that. Like, be careful what you wish for. People go, I just want a big moment where I'm awakened. It's like,
boom. So many people just ask for that, and they probably couldn't handle it, but you were built tough. So you obviously could handle it, and you needed it to be that way for all the reasons. So people just drip feeds into their lives, and but yes. So
okay,
on to like human design, because so many people like us don't really know much about it, and before this started, I jumped on your page and I clicked on and did my little free human, put it up on the screen. So I was thinking it might be for the ones that are watching, it might be a good way for you to explain if you can take a sneak peek at mine. I'm not asking for a free one, but if we can go through and
it absolutely sounds like you
okay.
are.
No, I love it. I love it.
So obviously a free reading's coming from Optimistic Xzavia. Like, I've got to mediate this somehow. Like, what the hell?
That's what it might be an easy way to explain, because I'm reading things on there going, what does that mean?
All right, share screen. Do a little share screen. So for those of you that are just listening to the podcast, then tough shit. But for those that are on YouTube, they're going to be able to see, oh my gosh, who's that email from? Okay, don't look at the whole screen. It's okay. No, I'm joking.
Can you see everything?
Oh,
What the
yes,
hell?
I can. I'm looking.
Come on, Cassandra.
Process for a second.
I love it.
Jeepers.
I was
love
laughing,
it.
going,
Are we going
hang
to
on.
have to blur out some of these details because, like,
Oh, it's fine.
someone's
Everyone's
going to hack
stalking
into
me,
you?
whatever. But I love that. I'm like, what do you mean design date? So I was designed on the 23rd of August, like a couple months before I was actually born. What the heck does that
Ooh,
mean?
what does that mean? Yeah, tell us that.
Ooh, okay.
What the hell are you
Yeah.
talking
I'm
about?
like, I love, and I'm noticing you're a manifesting generator. So it's funny because as I'm hearing you talk,
She's a
like,
manifesting
I
generator.
feel like, the cats, cats when they get excited and they start like wiggling. I literally feel like I'm starting to wiggle. And I'm like, don't wiggle, Cassandra, don't wiggle. They'll notice.
Wiggle is adorable.
So yeah, I get excited. And
Oh, that's so
so
funny.
yeah, I love it because I love talking about this stuff. And on that note, with being a manifesting generator, which is what you are, and that is what I am. So when we follow the things that light us up and we follow the things that excite us, we have so much energy. And they can call us like the Energizer bunnies in the sense of when we're doing that thing, because we can outrun we can outrun quite a few people when we're plugged in to that. And as we allow ourselves to sort of really embrace that and tap into that, our aura is open and enveloping, which means that people can be in your presence and you don't have to say anything or do anything. And they're going to feel motivated and uplifted and pumped up. And they're going to leave your presence and be ready to take on the world. So the key here, though, is following that thing that lights you up. And that's a big message of human design, which is what I love, is because often the things that we're drawn to, or especially when we start talking about the things we're gifted at or naturally good at, the society we're in kind of doesn't really give those things credit. Often, we're taught that strive and push and, I accomplished this by determination and hard drive, but what happens is those things that come easy to us, often we overlook. Where human design says path of least resistance, Wu Wei in Chinese is, but that doing without doing. And so it's when we are following those things, those gifts that we naturally are good at, that's what we're actually designed to be here and share with the world, but yet we often overlook them. So as a manifesting generator, that you also are not necessarily supposed to have a linear path. You're supposed to give yourself grace to hop around to whatever you want to do. And part of why they call this like an express energy is it's like if you picture going to college and they're like, okay, I want this degree, so you need to take these classes. The manifesting generator says, no, I'm going to take this one. This is relevant and I don't need the rest of this. So we have this way in our life of picking up where we need. That
Arrogantly
means sometimes.
unorganized. Arrogantly unorganized.
This is ridiculously accurate, Cassandra. All the feedback, all the way you tell people say I make them feel, even if we just talked the whole session, I didn't get to do any healing stuff. They're just like, I don't know what it is, just being in your space. So I say, just being in my space, stuff is happening. So it was,
Yep,
Yep.
absolutely.
so cool.
Yep,
Okay.
Types,
absolutely.
how many
Okay,
different
keep going,
types
keep
are
going.
there?
I'm still wiggling.
There's 5 different types.
Right.
Yeah, 5 different types.
Cool.
And I love the question that you asked about the design, where it says design and personality. So what that means when you're looking at your chart, in human design, that very esoteric piece says that the soul enters into the body about 3 months prior to birth, which is about a solar arc of 88 degrees. And so it's believed that that moment is when your soul entered into your developing body.
Okay.
And so this is the astrology from that point.
Okay.
And then the personality side is your astrology at birth. So when we can also look at this as a conscious and a subconscious side. Your personality side will be areas where you might quicker resonate or identify with, where sometimes the design side, depending on where we are in our evolution, our soul journey, we may or may not immediately recognize these things. But on this side, what we're looking at is this is where we can look at what is considered like your karmic journeys, or your, like core wounding, at, things you're meant to go through and evolve through in life. So that would be what your design side is. So now also, this is really
So just
cool.
so for people listening, so it looks
Is it-
like in the middle, which is like the map, looks
Yes.
a lot like a Celtic triad cross thing. Well, not cross, but a Celtic triad kind
Swirly
of
thing.
swirly thing with a penis shooting up the top. And
I was
there's
gonna say
like
it looks like your inside's your body, but
a whole
anyway.
lot of numbers within them, and looks like energy things and stuff. And on the left side, there's a whole lot of different symbols. I feel like hieroglyphics on the design side, and then on the right side of it, it's got a whole lot of hieroglyphics and numbers under personality. So when Cassandra's talking about that, it's like how these numbers and things on either side. Yeah, I just thought I'd give a bit of a visual of what the hell I'm looking at while you're talking, and I'm like, this
like
is hieroglyphics. I'm in like one of the pyramids looking at it, and then someone's telling me what it all means, and I'm going, oh, okay.
Astrology symbols.
Yeah.
So
Sorry, it's not a penis. I know it's not a penis. I'm sorry, Cassandra. I'm just saying.
I was about to say, so prior to recording that penny drop moment face, I might have just given you that. I've never heard of it described as a
drop,
penis.
she knows who she's talking to. Yep. She knows who she's talking to. Hey, we're talking. This
Aussies.
is lowbrow. This is for the lowbrows. Okay.
So, there's a lot of different ways that this chart is displayed, and some sites will show it to where, like, in the background's like a shadowed image of a person meditating, but definitely not a penis. Yeah.
Well, if that was me meditating, that's still accurate, because people have called me a dickhead before, and that would be what a penis is. So
is right. I hear you. Okay.
That dickhead over there.
Cassandra, what did you say was exciting? You said something was exciting.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're back.
So you have an extremely rare profile.
Cool.
Which is
special.
where it says that 4-1 right there, opportunist investigator. So that is where
profile.
That's So that is incredibly rare and can sometimes kind of be referred to as like a free life. An aspect of this means that basically, like, you're here to do what you want and not really be persuaded otherwise.
She got the green mushroom.
That's why I don't like having bosses and stuff. Like, I just say like a one up myself. Okay.
Did you see that thumb came up? I didn't even know my computer did that itself.
Wow.
It's like intuitively celebrating with you. I don't know why it did that.
Yeah, that's great. That's amazing.
But this is a very rare design, and these people are designed to kind of be the authority, really be, I mean, everybody should, but really be the authority of your life, and not really be persuaded to do otherwise. So this is permission to
Light bulbs going on.
really kind of do you 100%. And that's like your purpose here. And they can be very influential. It can also have an energy where maybe perhaps your presence may be powerful and triggering sometimes to people who might decide, yeah, okay, because it is very fixed in your path and direction. So it's very, very, very rare.
So it's like you can't
Where
help but be that way because it's so ingrained in your design. And this makes so much sense because, yeah, I do just do things the way I want. And usually when a politician, for example, let's just say in big moments in life when you get told what to do, my radar goes, no, this is not, doesn't make sense. I'm doing it my way.
You were so painful during lockdown. Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. So what lockdown? So that's a good example.
yeah.
Like that. And it's, so I'm saying this because, and I'm not meaning to like overtake this as in it's all about me, but just so people think how freaking accurate this is. Amazing. Like it's just, this is switching, this is lighting up things for me more than when I've had an astrology done. I'm big on feng shui, so the Chinese part of it's coming through. And when you said about, you know, entering the body and stuff, that sounds like when the roof gets put on a house in feng shui, and that's when the energy starts from. It's a similar kind of theme there. It's just fascinating. It makes so much sense.
It's pretty
accurate. And I can see already, just like with astrology, because there's so many layers to that. As you get to know a little bit, you can see where your weaknesses and strengths are and help grow them. You don't have to be fixed on, say there's weaknesses. You can help evolve and grow, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Yes.
Help people with this.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I can share one more thing if we have time.
Oh my gosh, please share. This is awesome.
Okay, yeah. So another important key beginning understanding of human design is understanding what is called your authority. And basically this is, if we look at society often, you know, the idea is decisions are made with our mind by weighing things out, pros and cons, you know, things along that lines. However, human design teaches us that the mind is simply a passenger in a vehicle. It can look out the window, it can see where it's been, it can look at that tree and be inspired and say, oh, that's a really neat tree. But it is not the driver. It is not the person making the decision. And for each and every one of us, we all have different ways in which we are designed to make decisions. And for you, you have what is called sacral authority. And so this is coming from, if you look at your chart starting at the bottom, where you have that white square in the middle, go up one more. That one is going to be your sacral center. And so what this means is it means for you, making decisions are going to be an in the moment gut response of what inspires and lights you up. And with the sacral, there's a couple of different ways that this can manifest. One is you may actually feel a sensation in your gut. And another way is through a verbal response that is not a word. So for example, if you picture somebody handing you a plate of food and you go, no, thank you, you know, or you look at it and you go, or ah, you know, picturing the oohs, the ahs, the ick, all of that. It's the gut response that just pushes something out vocally before you really have a chance to really digest or think about it. So it's this gut in the moment response. It can be one of the ways. The other thing is that the sacral doesn't really love having open-ended questions. Like if somebody says to you, what do you want for dinner? I mean, many of us can identify with that being like, oh, geez, what do I want for dinner? Instead, you want to ask the sacral clearer questions like, do you want Mexican for dinner? Do you want Chinese for dinner? And it gives you that opportunity to feel in your gut, like what is a yes for you and what is a no. And that's how you're meant to make decisions in that moment.
That's very me, and procrastinators do my head in. Is that why? Because I'm like, just make a decision. Go with your gut.
Yeah. And it's funny. I mean, I love it. I love it. I admire it because I have emotional authority, which basically means that I'm on a constant wave of ups and downs, and I have to wait till I'm in a neutral space before I can ask my sacral what it thinks about it. And so it's kind of counter. Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. To
so
ground.
Because you know that, you do other things so that you can use that for good and not it kind of hold you back.
Yes.
So clever.
Yeah.
So someone who has sacral authority, does that mean I like making instant gut reactions can also not be so great sometimes? So I need to do other things maybe for bigger decisions to help process it better, or does it?
So I would say for this, not necessarily. The key here is embodying your authentic energy.
Love that.
If you're living in a state of fear, or overwhelm, the second you start thinking up here in your head, that's when you're clouding and mucking up the process. So it should be an instantaneous, like, sacral response. Does this light me up? Does this excite me? If you try to put it up to the head and get wrapped up in the fear and all the other things, it just clouds the process.
It does. I don't. Yep.
Yeah.
Is there 5 authorities as well? Is that the thing, or is there a different amount of different authority?
6. There's different amounts. So there's I want to say 7 different authorities that you can have. The most common are the emotional, the sacral, and then the splenic authority.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh. I'm sure people will be looking at this or listening to this going, I want to know.
I love this.
Things.
I want people from now on to go, you know what? It's a tough decision. Go home, have something to eat, nice cold drink, sit down, and just trust your spleen.
Yeah.
Trust your spleen.
Just trust your spleen. Don't mean gut. No, not for you. Trust your spleen.
Also
and ignore your pancreas. All right? Doesn't know what it's talking about here.
They're going to look at this chart and always think of a penis too now forever. And so
yeah.
A lot of guys
you're just adding all sorts
think with the wrong organ. I'll be honest.
Oh my gosh. And I loved how you mentioned that this is, while it is complicated, and you mentioned having astrology readings, one of the reasons why I love human design is because while I do love astrology and I love talking about it, I found that when you sit with someone, astrology readings are very, you're very having to very much trust in that individual's intuition. And if the person doesn't know aspects or houses or some of the more complex things in astrology, that it doesn't always feel as easy to digest. Like, you can go home and listen to the reading again and affirm and let it absorb. But with a human design, it's something that it gives you more digestible, actionable steps that are, the client can then take their chart home and really start to, play with this, because a big aspect of human design is that polarity. Every one of these numbers in your chart represents a gift potential and a shadow side, and the shadow sides also have a repressive and a reactive expression. So it's a chart that allows you a wealth of information to personally contemplate and reflect on.
Wow. So it's like a bigger picture of the self.
Yeah. so many layers. And I just noticed, I think my chart's a bit of a misogynist. I just scrolled down to environment and it says I belong in the kitchen. Is that what that means?
Oh,
Well, you heard it first, and that's all we have time for. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Cassandra. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll be back at you next month with our next guest. Thank you very much. And well done. Great podcast, Cassandra. That was excellent. Daniel will be loving that. Back in the kitchen.
love it.
Off you go.
Oh, me.
Off you go. Take the
So
shoes off.
no, that is not
Barefoot.
to be taken so literally.
I think it is.
So basically what this means is if we think of the kitchen, and I think you'll really appreciate this when you hear it. When we think of the kitchen, we think of somewhere where we take a variety of ingredients. You can think of this as elements, and you pull them together and you create transformation. So you can think of this as like alchemical processes of transforming, putting things together to create something. This means that in your life, that areas where you will feel the most comfortable in your environment is places where transformation is taking place and things are sort of being processed, something is being put in, something different is coming out. And so with this, there are so many other layers, but basically that would be the definition where, for example, my chart is shores, which means that I like to be on the outskirts, the border of two different things taking place, or two different things. So it's like funny looking at it because in my actual life, I love living like just on the outskirts of a town. So it's like not a part of it, but able to observe it from a distance. So for me, it also has a quality of like liking options. I like to be able to look forward to being here. And then I also like being here. And so, yeah, it has that quality.
Wow.
How exciting.
So I think you definitely, sorry.
Yeah, so go.
I was going to say, I think you definitely need more than just looking at this chart. We definitely need you. And I know down the bottom, if you scroll down, you can get a mini human design.
Look at this. This is an infomercial now. This is great. and just for this week, Cassandra's doing a special deal for a mini human design report for $9.99 if you buy now. We need a flashing thing. Sorry, I took over.
Yeah.
Maybe we can suck up and get a podcast listener special or something.
Yeah, sounds good. I think this is already special because the price for that is
it's great.
That's too good.
Yeah, you don't need it. It's great. I'm happy to buy it.
No.
I want more information. Like, this is great. So your chart, you get this screenshot, and then of course you got in questions, and I love that, very sneaky, because they're like, what do you mean I belong in the kitchen? I want the personalized human design report to explain that one to me a little bit better. So
yeah, absolutely. And I love this information. So I try to have a variety of sources to digest it. So these here are written reports. So for people that are afraid to get in my presence on Zoom. Yeah, but then I also have more in-person Zoom readings,
right.
Oh, cool.
And different things, ways that people can learn, and I recently started to offer a free Q&A Zoom monthly group call for those who sign up for my newsletter on my site. So
that's cool.
Lots of options.
I noticed that if you do this chart, it does sound like an infomercial. I'm so sorry, but if you do the chart thing, then you can go straight into that newsletter as well. So you can do
absolutely.
And you go on that newsletter, and then you're aware of when the monthly things come up and stuff. Okay, that's cool.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
We didn't even talk about the other things that you do.
I know, unshare screen. So I want to get back. The infomercial's over.
Let's go back.
This episode was sponsored by
That's so interesting, though, and
that's
we
so
haven't talked
interesting.
about that before. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm
Like
glad it
intellect-
resonated.
Of course, you got to. I totally faked the whole thing just to make it look. No, it's deep.
Well, I appreciate it.
For someone, yeah, I appreciate you faking it. For someone that I don't appreciate it. For someone that knows Xzavia very well, I was looking at that chart, just going, "Oh wow!" Like all of that was
Agreeing, yeah.
100%.
That's weird.
On. That's.
Even I'm saying it's weird. No,
I know, and you're a weirdo. I have to start by saying that I absolutely intellectually disagree with you saying that the mind is just a passenger. I just thought I'd throw that one in.
Intellectual.
I intellectually completely disagree with you. Yeah. But then at the same time, I wholeheartedly agree with exactly what you're saying. So there we go. There we go. Can we just quickly just look at what the hell, because we can't put in the title and we can't talk about the gene keys, gene keys guide. Is that
Yeah,
right?
I'm a Gene Keys guide.
You're the
yes.
guide. Okay. So we can't just like mention that and then just go, oh, well, we didn't get to like, just can we, is that,
Yes.
what the heck is that?
Real quick. Yep.
Yeah.
I could absolutely. I'll make it short.
Yeah, okay.
So it basically we've talked a little bit about human design, and we talked about the personality side being the astrology at birth and the design, the astrology 3 months prior.
Mm-hmm.
So what the Gene Keys is all of those numbers that you see in that human design chart that you just looked at are connected to the I Ching. And so when we look at the I Ching, what the Gene Keys are, is it basically is a more esoteric contemplation of that energy. And they were introduced by Richard Rudd, who was very much close to the founder of human design. You can almost look at it as, wow, human design is awesome. There are qualities in which it can be more yang. You can look at Gene Keys almost as more yin. Okay. So it's very contemplative. It's very, the Gene Keys book lists all the 64 gates. And I don't know if you can see my hands, but it's like this thick. It's huge.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. It's a lot to digest. And so what the Gene Keys are is it's just that elaboration of that. And then Richard Rudd has his own download of different pathways that you can go through by reflecting on particular gates and particular aspects in that human design chart. I'm trying to summarize it as short as
it's a
possible.
way of going deeper into some of those key aspects.
Yes.
And it's like, well, I want to explore this one a little bit more. The Gene Keys are a way of kind of expanding in on that on a more focused, deeper level on that.
And yes, and his golden path, which are certain pathways of activations from your chart, all present something different. So for example, the activation sequence focuses on the 4 gates connected to the human design incarnation cross, which are very significant. This is essentially the 4 pillars of who we are in the meat of our energy. And the Venus sequence is all about relationships and karma. It's also referred to as your personal wound map because it goes in very deep into some of those subconscious areas. And then the Pearl focuses on prosperity and the sense of fulfillment in life when you're aligned with what you're here to share with the world. And so that's kind of a little intro of of what the Gene Keys are.
Or at least what it does. And it's interesting you talk about how a lot of this stuff has come from different paths, but it's all like
it's connected.
I wonder if it's connected, that wisdom is connected, that the Hindus picked up on, that, you know, maybe the Egyptians, I don't know about that. I question the Egyptian stuff. But then like the Chinese and a lot of these this information, this ancient information, it kind of keys up to maybe the one do you think there's some kind of one wisdom? I'm getting out there now, but do you think there's some kind of...
No, I love it. So after studying the human design system, gene keys, astrology, I've also looked into other systems as well. I personally feel like it starts to sound like it's saying the same things. And so I do believe that all of these different cultures are, I think what in Egypt, they talk about the emerald tablets and the law of attraction, and all of these concepts are basically calling us to what? Self-reflect, to understand who we are, and to come back to self. The heretic principles, all of that, like you can find all of this in so many different layers. One day I was stumbled upon an exploration of the Kabbalah, and same thing. I was looking at it and I'm like, this is, all of it is interconnected, I feel.
Wow.
Yeah.
Agree. It's just like, it's like a universal energy. We're all tapping in to get information, and they're bringing and explaining it in their own way. And it's interesting. Like, I'm an Australian, very white, and I follow feng shui, but as well, it just depends on what you're drawn to. But essentially, it does just feel it's all the same, really.
I'd like to describe it as there's no absolute one path for everyone, and we all have our own unique truths that are meant for us for whatever our journey is in this particular incarnation. But I think that knowing that, I also feel, like I said, that a lot of the information is just different modalities to bring us back to those deeper realizations. Yeah,
that's right. What a beautiful way to end the episode. Love that.
Lovely. Well,
and if your story is to have a human design report or more with Cassandra, then that might be what you're drawn to. Please go and do it. That's and we love getting to know you as well, because we just lovely personality come through. You're just such a breath of fresh air. She's so cute. So they can
thank you
as well. Who's behind all this work, and maybe have a Zoom as well to chat with you in person. That'd be great.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. We've really appreciated your time, and I'm sure everyone's got something out of it. A lot of fun, and we look forward to talking to you again sometime. This would be great. We didn't even, there's so many things we didn't even touch on.
We could get into more. Thank you, darling.
Appreciate it. Oh, and check out your podcast as well. So on your website, which we'll put in the show notes. So on your website, you've got your podcast too. That's in the About You or something. I think I saw.
It's I think it's under the tab Grow.
Okay, great.
That it's there.
Because people like to get more, so you can always get more.
Well, more of Cassandra.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
That's it for another episode, but that doesn't have to be the end of the conversation.
Feel free to leave your comments on our YouTube channel, or for those podcast listeners, you can email us at mickandthepsychic@gmail.com to leave your feedback or questions.
I'm a certified hypnotherapist and timeline regression therapist. If you wish to contact me to explore the source of an issue you're facing, just book a session at hernhypnosis.com.au and include the promo code MATP for 10% off. You can contact me on Insta and Facebook at hernhypnosis.
Check out my website at optimisticxzavia.com.au if you feel you'd like to connect with me as a psychic medium, spiritual mentor, or intuitive coach. Include the promo code MATP for 10% discount. You can also find me on Insta, LinkedIn, and Facebook.
We look forward to connecting with you again next time as we attempt to leave no stone unturned.
Bye.
All right, cool. I reckon that should be okay.